This presentation that I am sharing with you guys today, we'll receive a follow-up email that has not only this presentation, but throughout the presentation, there's going to be some hot links all throughout, talking a little bit about what ecosystem building is, who are the players, as well as some hot links. There's going to be hot links all over the place. They're hot links to the resources to help you on your journey to be an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder. The funny thing is, bear with me for just 1 second. I'm having some technical. There we go. Welcome to the Microfinance. What are entrepreneurial ecosystems? And again, good morning. But like I said, there's going to be hot links all throughout this presentation, so you guys will have everything that you need to know about what are entrepreneurial ecosystems and who are the builders. Because more than likely, you are a builder. But this is going to be really broad strokes about what are entrepreneurial ecosystems, who are a part of entrepreneurial ecosystems, because it's kind of everybody. But also some guiding principles that we all need to be aware of to help guide us through the creation, the development, and the stewardship of entrepreneurial ecosystems all throughout the Commonwealth. And also, one of the things that I'd like to be able to do is take what entrepreneurial ecosystem building means, and let's use this meaning that we're going to be talking about today and use it to start creating some consistent language all throughout the Commonwealth. But before we get started, there is some housekeeping. And that housekeeping is, I think most of you guys have done it. You're already on mute. You guys can have your camera still on. That's cool. I love it. I miss seeing faces. But stay muted throughout the presentation today. Don't hesitate to throw questions in the chat box. We'll get to them towards the end of the presentation. So again, I'm Chris Kane. I'm with the Department of Housing and Community Development. I think most of you guys are familiar with DHCD. But if you're not, I wanted to let you know that we are a state agency that is committed to creating safe, affordable, and prosperous communities for people to live, work, do business, and play in Virginia. And the way that we do that is predominantly through technical assistance and funding through a wide variety of different programs across the Commonwealth. The program that I am a part of is the Economic Development and Community Vitality Office. Again, we offer technical assistance and funding through a wide variety of programs like Enterprise Zone. The IRF initiative is to help rehabilitate some of those white elephant buildings in your community. Virginia Main Street. So many of you guys, so glad to see so many Virginia Main Street faces that are joining us today. But I have a brand new department, which is the Department of Microfinance. So what is microfinance? Microfinance is focusing on getting access to capital to entrepreneurs through a wide variety of partner organizations. So the Small Business Resiliency Fund is specifically to help existing and emerging community development financial institutions get access to capital to small businesses. There's also the Community Business Launch, which we're having a how to apply workshop next week. So tune in, we'll have some information at the end. But the Community Business Launch is a pitch competition that gives grants to small companies so they can actually go into available brick and mortar spaces in your communities. We also have the Virginia Individual Development Account Program, which is a match savings program to help people of modest means not only start or expand a small company, but buy houses too. So that's our microfinance, our new microfinance division. And Sabrina, myself, and Jessica, all of our information that is in microfinance is at the end of this presentation. And also there is Go Virginia. Go Virginia is a part of is a funding stream that helps funding in a wide variety of ways to help entrepreneurial ecosystems grow. And I do want to let Andrea say a couple of words about Go Virginia. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, thanks, Chris. Yes, so thanks for the shout out to all these wonderful programs, but also I'll speak to Go Virginia quickly. Its mission really is to create higher paying jobs in throughout the Commonwealth. And we have 4 investment strategies, and one of those is what we call startup ecosystems. So we have many organizations that have achieved funding through Go Virginia for a variety of entrepreneurial projects. We do have more of a focus on traded sectors. And so we have designed the project, or excuse me, the whole program with 9 regions in the state. And so we have a bottom-up approach where grantees that are interested should be in touch with their regional council. And for each regional council, there are those traded sectors that are targeted for that region. So every region is a little bit different, but not to get too into the weeds, but if you're interested in Go Virginia, I'll send a link in the website, and I'll also send an access point to your region where you can find your region, and there's contact information for that regional council and for that plan that identifies those targeted sectors, those traded sectors where that region is interested in growing new businesses. So it's a really exciting opportunity for you all to think about growing your entrepreneurial ecosystems. We also have a special initiative called the Regional Entrepreneurship Initiative. I can send the link for that as well. So thanks for letting me do a brief overview, and I'll have my name and contact information too if you have any general questions.
Andrea, thank you so much. And like I said, all of these programs in the Economic Development and Community Vitality Office, those are all hot links, so you guys can go and learn more about each of those initiatives. So what is an entrepreneurial ecosystem? And more importantly, who builds them? Who's a part of it? I already gave a little bit of an answer earlier. It's everyone, but let's talk about who everyone really is. And I also want to say, I feel like entrepreneurial ecosystem building is a little bit of a buzzword. And I feel like when it comes up, sometimes the listener doesn't have the same definition as the speaker. So over the next year or so, we're going to have some conversations about what is an entrepreneurial ecosystem, who builds them, more about those guiding principles, how to get access to capital in those communities, and actually build trust and collaboration, because that's really the core of entrepreneurial ecosystem. But it is funny though, even folks like myself who have been an ecosystem builder forever, and you know what? For the longest time, I didn't know I was. Thank you, Larkin Garby. Larkin Garby introduced me to the Startup Champions Network, which was a nationwide network of entrepreneurial ecosystem builders that convene about twice a year through the SCN Summit. And there's some information at the end of this slideshow about SCN. And she's like, you should come to Fargo. That's where the fall summit was in 2017. And she's like, you're an ecosystem builder. And I'm like, I have never heard of this. What does this mean? She's like, you've been doing this work forever. So I've been helping small businesses start and grow in all kinds of ways. And she's like, you're an ecosystem builder and you don't even know it. You need to come and meet other ecosystem builders and learn more about what we do and how we do it. And for me, what an ecosystem builder means is we are the conveners and the connectors that bring people together to solve problems that our entrepreneurs face every day. So, who is an entrepreneurial ecosystem builder? Well, let's start with the traditional player. So these are the top-down folks that you would traditionally think of in economic development. They're the policymakers, researchers, investors, community leaders, lawyers, bankers, all of these players, right? These are the traditional, who comes to mind with creating economic change in communities, but it's really much wider than that. So that's kind of the the kind of top-down economic development approaches. And what we need to do, and Andrea mentioned this, is those that are doing the bottom-up work, bringing those people together and doing it in a way that it creates safe spaces for this dialogue to continue. So who else has not been traditionally a part of this overall ecosystem? It is the artists, it's the musicians, it's the farmers. Libraries should be on this list. I realized that this morning. I was like, oh, but libraries were the original co-working spaces. You guys know that, right? But we need to make sure the makers, the dreamers, and the doers are also a part of our ecosystem, because our ecosystem is really about allowing the fast flow of talent and information and resources that help entrepreneurs quickly find, and there's some operative words there, quickly find what they need at every stage of growth. So it's that tech entrepreneur, it's that farmer, it is that 10th grade crafter that goes to the makerspace in order to create her product or her service. So, talked a little bit about the who. Now let's talk about some foundational elements of what an ecosystem really needs to have. So first and foremost are the entrepreneurs. Are entrepreneurs who start and grow small businesses, and they're also the people who support those entrepreneurs. That's a lot of us who are here today. Talent that can help companies grow. Knowledge and resources. These are the people and the institution with the knowledge and resources to help entrepreneurs. Also, individuals and institutions that serve as champions and conveners of ecosystems and the entrepreneurs within them. On-ramps. On-ramps are really, these are the access points to the ecosystem so that everyone and anyone can participate. And this is really the key to that quickly find those resources. Is so being able to identify and do some asset mapping to who has what so they can connect them to the people who need it the most. The intersections that facilitate the intersections between people, ideas, and those resources. Stories that tell about the story that people not only tell about themselves, but about our ecosystems. And then culture. Culture is huge. Culture is a part of some really magical math that is reflected in vibrant ecosystems. I was at a Rural Rise Summit a couple of years ago, and I saw this on a big slide in a PowerPoint presentation, so I noted it. People and culture is everything. This is the essence of what not only an entrepreneurial ecosystem is, but the part that we play. You can't take the people out of it. All of our hopes and dreams and aspirations and foibles and failures and ingenuity and creativity, that's what creates communities and neighborhoods that are really worth living in and are worth fighting for. Oh, I'm gonna get off the click. But this is what it's about. It's about trust and collaboration. And again, I'll talk about how at the Fargo Summit a few years ago, there was this gentleman that had got up and talked about how there was a fantastic traditional economic development project that got off the ground and hired tons of new people. It was a Microsoft call center right outside of town. But because of that people part was left out and the culture wasn't even really taken into consideration, that Microsoft call center, the longevity of the people who worked there was only about 1.5 years. Why? Because it was so separate from the culture of Fargo. People got burned out very quickly, and they weren't able to cultivate relationships within that infrastructure, right? Friendships are important. And I know that sounds a little, I don't know how that sounds, but to me, it really hit with me. We need friendships. We need friendships in our communities. We need friendships within our businesses. We need friendships with the people who can help us grow, but also we need friendships. You know that it hits the fan for entrepreneurs on a regular basis, and we can only handle that with partnerships and friendships if we're going to be able to continue to do the building that we know we need to do. So how do we do that? What are the principles that guide us? The Kauffman Foundation had a series of E-Ship summits that went through 7 principles, or really not went through, but created a 7 guiding principles of what entrepreneurial ecosystem building is all about. We can't do just one of these. All 7 need to be a part of our values and the way that we do our work. And I'm going to give a shout out to Annika in just a couple of minutes. Annika Horn has a master class that is Ecosystem Building 101. That starts next week, so mark the calendars. And also, everybody who is on this, who's registered for this webinar, will get a discount code to get 25% off of Annika's masterclass. She's going to go through in really deep detail every one of these 7 principles. And there's going to be things like fireside chats and resources and ways to share your stories. So, but due to time and, mainly time, I'm going to go through just very quickly about what each of these points mean. First and foremost, putting entrepreneurs front and center. Entrepreneurs need to be the leaders of our initiatives. Entrepreneurs should be the inspiration for our programs, and they should also ultimately be the beneficiaries of everything we do. Now, let me be really clear about something. I said entrepreneurs, not small companies. It's the people. We cannot separate the people from our businesses and our communities. So it's putting the entrepreneurs front and center. So how do we do that? What we need to do is foster conversations in our ecosystems. We need to move knowledge and resources from the people who have that knowledge and those resources to the entrepreneurs that need those that knowledge and those resources. We need to be having inclusive conversations, and these inclusive conversations need to have the shift from just strategy and tactics to how things are impacted on the ground. And we really need to have an eye on turning those conversations into hope. And well, that phraseology, I don't know about you, but has new meaning to me over the past couple of years. COVID-19 has been hard on all of us, especially on our entrepreneurs. Sometimes it's been really, really, really hard to find hope. But having those inclusive and meaningful conversations with our entrepreneurs and with an eye towards action is where hope can be fostered and created. So who needs to join this? And like I said, everybody does. How? How do we enlist our collaborators? Now, I want to say it's about listening. I want to say it's about conversations. But it's taking a look and see who has and needs a voice and invite them in. That's what we can do. We need to be the keystones in our communities to listen to the conversations that are having and the conversations that aren't being had. And whose voices do we need to hear? We need to really be talking about some radical inclusivity. And this also, we need to be putting aside our titles, hierarchies, and any kind of, frankly, egos. We need to be putting those to the side so we can come together to figure out where we're going together. So this is the farmers, this is the tech companies, these are the artists, these are the butchers, the bakers, the candlestick makers. Everybody is invited, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we create those safe spaces where our values can not only be lived, but we can talk about those values. And so what do I mean about living our values? We have to make our values explicit. We need to be focusing on activities where we can live out our values to affect real change. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about being hospitable. And right now, again, that's hard to cultivate sometimes. But being honest with that hard work. We need to listen. We need to seek fairness. We also need to redefine things like failure. And we also need to dream big, right? I am an ecosystem builder. I love what I do here at DHCD, but I'm an ecosystem builder no matter whose name is on my paycheck. I do this work. It's part of my identity. I'm living my values. And I know that you guys are living your values too. Number 5, we need to find ways to connect people from the bottom up, the top down, outside in. We need to find ways to cultivate trust. We need to get to know each other. And those values that I talked about just a second ago are really going to serve you well when you're connecting people and building bridges. Because sometimes you're connecting people that don't feel like they can organically should be or could be connected. Number 6 is we need to tell our community's authentic story. Now, I want to say we give a lot of lip service to this. We give a lot. Storytelling is also as much all over the place as ecosystem building is. But what does it really mean? We need to be doing a better job telling the stories of our communities. And if we don't have good ways to tell those stories, we need to create them. And we need to build those channels that don't currently exist. It's our job to uncover the assets in our ecosystem and telling those stories, having those conversations. So it's everything from blogs to webinars, just like this. Hopefully we can start having, in real life meetings. Those are happening slowly. But again, it's our job to find ways, innovative and creative ways to tell the stories of our entrepreneurs. And number 7 is start and be patient. I think this is kind of the hardest one, especially for those of us that really get the idea of doing an action. But there's 2 steps. One is to get started, and the second is to be patient. We have to have the long-term approach in mind. And there's a lot of things that we can't control. And it's hard. If you talk to ecosystem builders, talking to you guys, burnout is really high. How long can we be doing this work? How long is the long term really? Annika also has a podcast, and like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. But episode 1 is an interview with a fantastic friend and colleague of mine, Debbie Irwin. And she's really honest about what it takes to be patient. Listen to that podcast. There's lots of things that, like I said, that we can't control. And we can't do just one of these 7 principles. We have to do them all. So I totally stole this right off of the Kaufman website. But I thought this was a fantastic kind of a summing up of what ecosystem building is. It's an inclusive field, with a collaborative culture, a shared vision, connected networks, practical metrics and methods, universal support, and sustainable work. Together, we can do some really amazing things. Now, I am moving a little faster than what I thought. So I do want to give a shout out to two folks that are on this webinar who are not only ecosystem builders, but are doing amazing work in the Commonwealth. So first, I want to say Jess Edwards from Dan River, the Dan River Region Entrepreneur Ecosystem. You want to say a couple things for us today?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah, good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Christina, for the opportunity to share a little bit about our work. I will make it quick, and thank you all for lending your ears. I'm going to just do a very short but important kind of overview of what we're doing. So Christina did a really great background on what ecosystem building is, so we don't have to get into that. But as she mentioned, my name is Jess Edwards. I'm the principal coordinator for the Dan River Region Entrepreneurial Ecosystem here in Southern Virginia. A little timeline of our work. This work started in 2014 when partners in the Dan River region that support entrepreneurs and small businesses organically started to come together and said, we need to collaborate more. We need to streamline and formalize how we're helping our ecosystem grow. Following those informal meetings, a Danville Regional Foundation fellows started to get everyone together in a more formalized way. It was then in 2019 they could move forward with a scope of work for the region here, and they applied to Kaufman Foundation. They got in the top 25 for a Kaufman grant, but double-edged sword, Kaufman came back and said, you're actually a little too far along to get the funding to build out the ecosystem. And so the partners came together and said, this work is too important for us not to do. And what they did was they resubmitted the grant to the Danville Regional Foundation. And in fall 2019, they were awarded $711,000 to do a 3-year ecosystem development project. And with that in mind, I was hired. I'm a project-based ecosystem builder, and we started our work March 2020, 2 weeks before lockdown. Who is all involved in this project? We currently have 12 resource provider organizations. The leadership team is the Launch Place, Chamber of Commerce, Danville, Pittsylvania County, River District Association that does all the Main Street development in this area, Danville Community College, Longwood SBDC. Our partners include City of Danville Economic Development Office, Pittsylvania County Economic Development Office, Project Imagine, which is the Youth Gang Prevention Violence Program here, the Institute for Advanced Learning and Research, Averett University, and our affiliates are Black Brand, Dan River Region, and Southern Virginia Higher Education Works. As I quickly mentioned, we are on a 3-year scope of work, and there's 3 big objectives. One is to complete the scope of work that the Danville Regional Foundation has approved and invested in. The second is to formalize the collaboration process among all the stakeholders and identify opportunities to not only streamline, but build out new programming and support. And 3 is to enhance or develop all of the efforts. And the number one goal always is no duplication as much as possible. How can we enhance overlapping work? So there's kind of 3 buckets that we are focusing on for ecosystem development. Main Street Entrepreneurship, which is led by River District Association and the Chamber. Youth Entrepreneurship, building out that talent pipeline. And then we have a community-wide entrepreneurship element, which happens every year as we are partnering with Global Entrepreneurship Week. And for this call, because it's about microfinancing, I wanted to focus on our Main Street entrepreneurship programming. So the DreamLaunch program, it started in 2019. And at this point, we're right now doing the boot camp for this year. There's well over 200 individuals that have applied and attended the free business boot camp classes. Those that complete the boot camp classes also qualify to pitch for funding at the end of it. As of right now, we've had over 20 businesses pitch, which is really exciting since 2019. And last year, 9 out of 10 of those that pitched, actually, it was their first time ever pitching in a pitch competition, period. And also 9 out of 10 were women of color, small business owners, which was really great as well. The expansion of DreamLaunch, because DreamLaunch focuses on Main Street entrepreneurship in the River District in Danville. The Chamber partnered with River District Association to expand the program to the rest of the city and the county. And they started that expansion last year with $50,000 to award to those who pitched for funding. With that said, I know I wanted to keep it short and light as Christina offered time here today. If anyone has interest in learning more about what we're doing here in Southern Virginia, or needs help with ecosystem development in their part and corner of the Commonwealth, please do reach out. My email is jess@danriverecosystem.org. And with that, I will stop making myself between you and a yummy lunch. Thank you, Christina.
Oh, thank you so much, Jess. I had the opportunity of sitting in on an ecosystem builders forum back in November, and I was so impressed with what Jess is doing, and I was like, we need to talk. And so we started that conversation just a few weeks ago. So thanks again. The other person I want to give a shout out to is Annika Horn. I've already mentioned her masterclass, but Annika Horn is the president and founder of Social Ventures. There's a link to her podcast that I'd already talked about. She's also with the Shenandoah Community Capital Fund that serves the entire Shenandoah Valley, and also a part of Zebras Unite Co-op. Annika, did you want to say hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me, Chris. So good to see you. And Jess, well done. I had the pleasure of working with Jess 2 years ago to write a case study about the work she's doing in regional ecosystem building for the unsung heroes of ecosystem building. Unsung for a reason, because like Chris said earlier, most of us don't really have a title for the work we're doing. We are just really passionate about helping local entrepreneurs thrive and try to move heaven and earth to make sure they have a higher chance of succeeding. Chris already mentioned a lot of the work that I'm doing. So I am in the Shenandoah Valley trying to convene a regional coalition of entrepreneurial support organizations, trying to do regional storytelling, outreach, and just really getting everybody more on the same page. Definitely learning from my friend Jess, because she's a few years ahead in that journey, and I've been really impressed with the work you guys have been doing. And for everyone here, if you think you may be an ecosystem builder and you want to hear from others to see if that fits, feel free to check out the podcast. I've had the chance of talking to some really incredible people from around the world about how they're going about this work. I've talked to community builders, co-working space operators, investors, economic developers. So I tried to bring a lot of different lenses into these conversations, because as Chris mentioned earlier, it's not so much about the professional title you may hold at the moment. It's really more about the mindset and the passion you bring to this work. And that helps you figure out where you can plug into the system. And as Chris mentioned, so the podcast is a free resource for everybody. Please go check it out. There's lots of event recommendations, books, other podcasts, shows, like everything you want is on there. I also have a starter kit for ecosystem builders on socialadventures.com, so you could feel free to download that and dive into the world. I tried to pick different media because I know that all of us learn very, very differently. Some of us may read, others listen to audiobooks, others want to watch a show. So I curated my favorite resources because people come to me all the time and say, how do I learn more? How can I dive into this? And I curated the starter kit for everyone who wants to invest 2 minutes in learning more about it or the next 3 months studying it. So there's something for everybody there. A very concise way, Chris already mentioned this, is the masterclass that I'm teaching. I set up a referral code for my new friends and family at the DHCD. So if you use the discount code DHCD, you get 25% off, and that takes place in 1 week from today. So if you want to learn more, join. And last but not least, I know that Jess and I will be hanging out at the Startup Champions Network Summit. I don't know if Chris is coming too, and I hope to see so many of you there because
I'm totally coming.
Yes, as Chris mentioned, it's people like you all and me and Jess and Chris who do this work day in, day out and tend to get a little bit tired sometimes, or maybe want to learn from our peers in other parts of the country. SCN, the Startup Champions Network, does a really good job of bringing in people, not necessarily from New York City and San Francisco and the Silicon Valley, but other sort of mid-tier cities that are just coming up, that are really starting to lean into this approach. And so that allows us to learn from each other. I always jokingly refer to these conferences as part professional development and part group therapy. It's a wonderful experience. April 4 through April 6 in Durham, North Carolina. And I'm one of the co-hosts, so I'll definitely be there and hope to see so many of you. I will put links to everything in the chat. If you want to connect, I'm super easy to find on social media, Annika Horn or Social Venture, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, you name it. Come and find me. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Chris. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Annika and I met. You still had a little baby. You were still making the baby whenever I met you in Fargo. But I meant what I said about forging relationships and friendships, because you can't do this alone. You're not supposed to do this alone. You have to surround yourself with people that you trust, you can collaborate with, and to be completely honest, you do better work when you're surrounded with people when you're surrounded by people who love you. So think about that intentionally. And now I'm going to do the sharing of the screen again. All right. So as I said earlier, this is the first of a handful of conversations we're going to be having here at DHCD. So we're kind of taking a little bit of a sandwich approach to education. So this is our first conversation. Again, very broad strokes about what ecosystem building is. Are you one? Yes, you know them. But on March the 9th, we're going to have we're going to start digging a little bit deeper and taking with an eye on action about how to make our ecosystems much more vibrant. And our entrepreneurs need access to capital, right? So on March the 9th, and Jessica is going to be throwing in the registration. Thank you, Jessica. So you guys can join us on that webinar on March the 9th, talking about innovative ways to get capital into your ecosystem. So we're going to be talking about, of course, lending or match savings programs, micro investing, and also taking a look at how you guys can identify the non-monetary types of capital that are in your ecosystems. In June, we're going to have a Rev Up series, and what I mean by Rev Up is that this is going to be about a 4-hour workshop. This is going to be in real life. So initially we were going to have it in March, but Omicron, whenever we were planning, Omicron decided to change everything, so we pushed it out a little bit. So what we're going to be talking about, and we're going to do this, like I said, in 4-hour workshops in 3 to 4 localities throughout the Commonwealth. So we're going to talk about how about how to determine how healthy your ecosystem is. So we're going to talk about defining and identifying the gaps in your ecosystems and the foundations of developing a work plan. So if you come to the RevUps, there's going to be some work to do. And then we're going to have a third, because this is the bottom part of the sandwich, another webinar in October about building trust to work together. By building trust to work together to link and leverage our assets in our ecosystem. So this is DHCD's way of not only giving a nod to the importance of ecosystems and the builders within those ecosystems, but also start pulling together people around the Commonwealth who do this work. And there we go. And what this is really all about, what this is really all about is connecting you guys with not only people, but resources. And the little link to the ecosystem building playbook's a little wonky. Anyway, sorry about that. But these are all the resources that not only have I referred to, but a couple of more. The Kaufman Foundation, Social Ventures, there's a link to Annika's Ecosystems for Change podcast. Her masterclass starts next week. There's also a fantastic blog called Ecosystem Builder Hub, which Jess was one of the guests a couple of years ago. There's also a link to the Startup Champions Network that Annika and I had reference to. And so please come and join us in Durham in April. And I also wanted to let you guys know, one of the reasons why we're going to have our Rev Up in June, and then our Trust and Collaboration webinar in October, because we want to give you guys enough time to determine whether or not something like the Ecosystem Health Challenge that the Startup Champions Network offers to ecosystem builders is a good thing for you to use. So there's some informational sessions that are coming up over the next week about what the ecosystem health challenge is, but it's really about taking your metrics and data and using that to drive not only change within your ecosystems, but the programs and initiatives that you guys would like to launch. So we're having our third conversation in this series after the ecosystem health challenges take place. So hopefully you guys can bring some of that knowledge from the health challenges with you to that trust and collaboration and asset building conversation. There we go. All right, now for questions. Jessica, I'm going to stop presenting so I purposely had the chat hidden because, sound and objects I look towards. What kind of questions do you guys have about the conversation today? I mean, I covered everything. All right. Well, I know that that you guys really want to know more about some of the resources that DHCD has and some grant information and deadlines that are coming up. You guys really want to know that, right? Oh, here we go. What is a good way to find your local entrepreneurs? That's a really great question. I'm gonna actually ask, who else can answer this question besides me? I miss teaching classes. I like to call on people. Does anybody have a good answer for what is a good way to find local entrepreneurs? Jenny asks.
Sure, I can share a couple things. So as Christina mentioned, if you're not in Silicon Valley, which most of us aren't, and it's a smaller community, there's a lot of, I would say, focus on a lot of informal meetings, meaning joining Facebook groups, like I'm in the small business Facebook group in Danville. I'm also in the Black brand small business. So it's support Black businesses. And so you can see people who said, hey, I'm just getting started. I'm cooking out of my kitchen. Can anyone refer me to, loans or grants for people that are just getting started in food and beverage? And so I would say in the digital space, Facebook and other Nextdoor, all of those kind of places that people that are trying to buy and sell informally, that's a good place to start. And then in person, going to the farmers market, going to the coffee shops, that's a lot of places where smaller businesses meet, and you can ask around and say, who do you know that just started up? Going to food truck, events, things like that. But I focus on the informal meetings versus people that are established. They're going to be going to kind of more the formal things, right? So yeah, I would just take a log of all the kind of informal social gathering areas that most people would have meetings or meet up, and try it that way.
That's a great answer, Jess. The first thing that I would say is walk around, right? Totally depends upon where you live, obviously. The entrepreneurial ecosystem in Monterey or Swope looks a little bit different than in Carytown in Richmond. But I would say, yeah, walk around, go to your farmers markets. There are all kinds of groups online as well. And go to I guess most libraries are open now. Definitely go to your libraries, talk to your community leaders. If there's a co-working space in your community, a co-working space is a great place to meet all kinds of entrepreneurs. There in a co-working space, I was lucky enough to help start the Stanton Innovation Hub in Stanton, Virginia. So it was amazing to see tech entrepreneurs had their office right next to farmers. It was amazing, right? And then, so co-working spaces are an amazing place to not only meet entrepreneurs, but learn how to work with them. And have we covered all the places where you can meet people? We've talked about farmers markets, the interweb, the sidewalk. Where else can we meet folks? All right, now Jessica had a question. She's curious to know why people join the call, or what they're what they're working on, if people want to share. And you guys can unmute and say something as well. Billy.
Yeah, so I'm Kristen's colleague at DHCD. I work on Gary, Virginia. And the reason I joined is kind of to understand more about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, especially dealing with kind of some of the things that maybe Gary, Virginia doesn't always fund. Andrea talked about, we kind of focus on more trade sector type jobs, but there's a lot of stuff that runs parallel with what we do. And I just want to get a better understanding kind of what's out there.
Awesome. Thank you, Billy. And I just see the comment. Am I going to say, I don't know if I'm going to say your last name right. D. McCaleb. They said, hi, Jess. I live in a very rural community on the Eastern Shore, and I'm looking to inspire a revitalization in our little town through beautification and creating places and possibilities that give our community a renewed purpose. Oh, that's beautiful. Office on the shore, and now working on an esvamarket.com, and you're also looking for resources. Oh, look, there's connections are being made. D. McCaleb, meet Jenny. Jenny from Annika, Main Street would love to connect. All right, Will, how do you build community with a sense of we in an entrepreneurial ecosystem when there may be strong competition too?
I
Annika,
can jump
I
on
saw
that.
that you unmuted.
One of my favorite questions, because sense of competition is ingrained in every ecosystem I've ever been to. in part because that's a system is set up, right? It is kind of stacked against organizations when we have to compete for funding, we have to compete for space, for goodwill. There's so much competition because I could talk for days about this. And in season 2 of my podcast, we will talk weeks about it because it's such a big mindset shift that we need to make. The approach I'm taking in the Shenandoah Valley is asking people to leave their professional roles and organizational agendas at the door and come into a conversation talking about what are we hoping to achieve for our community, not me individually, not Jess individually, but what do we want to be known for? What do we want for entrepreneurs in our community? So like Chris pointed out earlier, we always need to put the needs and challenges and goals of entrepreneurs at the front and center, and trying to curate a conversation that rallies around the entrepreneurs and setting a vision that is just bigger than anything that each of us can achieve on their own. So trying to build that community vision, and then, stepping back and seeing who wants to take over what part and who wants to drive it in their very particular way. It's a very delicate conversation to have with your community, but like Chris said earlier, it's a very important conversation is with your community about who do we want to be and how do we want to support entrepreneurs. And I found that by opening up that space to talk about that's really the first stepping stone of putting community over competition and then diving into that. But Will, you brought this up, rest assured that every individual community is struggling with that, and that we as ecosystem builders play an important role in changing that mind shift away from competition, more towards collaboration that requires trust. And that's a lot of what we talk about in ecosystem building is how do you build trust? Because that's really the currency. Without trust, nothing will flow in the ecosystem. So that's really one of the first steps that any of us needs to focus on. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much, Annika. I was delighted when I saw you unmuted. I'm like, I know Annika has something to say about this. So thank you. Jessica, can you tell us about your what you just threw in the chat?
Absolutely. So I work with Chris at DHCD in the Microfinance division, working on the Resiliency Fund, but also on Community Business Launch, which for anyone here who might not be familiar with that grant program, it is essentially a grant to localities and nonprofits to put on a 6 to 8 week business class, basically for entrepreneurs, culminating in a pitch night. And I think Jess actually mentioned that they did something similar in Danville. They're in the process of a community business launch as we speak. But something that is really interesting to me in my time working on CBL is that I think that is always top of mind, that what are people going to get cutthroat over the funding, are they, and what we usually see is that they kind of band together as a group in support of each other, and they create a network within the cohort itself to connect resources with each other. So I think, you don't necessarily have to do it that way, but it's a good way to get those entrepreneurial minded folks in the room to really talk about what they want to see for that community. And generally the community is just a good place for conversation as a whole.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a full disclosure. For 5 years, I was the executive director of SCCF. So I'm delighted to see the direction that SCCF is, how growing and how SCCF is growing. But back in 2015, SCCF was it was part of the pilot for CBL. And it was really great seeing because not everybody got a grant, right? It was definitely a competition. But that was one of the things I was kind of afraid of, is how is that feeling of competition going to start bubbling up? And it didn't. So that was pleasantly surprising to me. So, all right. And Jess Edwards just threw in some more information about DreamLaunch. So does anybody else have any questions or comments? Before we go, I do want to share a couple of upcoming grant information and deadlines that that my department has in the next few months, and also give a kind of a shout out for the Virginia Main Street Conference. So any other questions before I share the screen yet again?
Hi, Christina. My name is Jennifer Morgan. I'm with Riot. We're a new ESO in Virginia. We launched in January, and I would love to connect with all of you to learn more about each of your organizations. Annika, I'm definitely going to try to get down to Durham because Debbie keeps telling me I have to. And Riot is actually based in Raleigh, so it would be perfect. But yeah, I just wanted to say hi, and hopefully I can connect with all of you.
Welcome, Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us today. And you said that Riot is based in Durham, but where are you?
I'm based in Fredericksburg. Our office is in Stafford, and we're trying to expand in Virginia.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Just a couple more things. And then, like Jess said, I don't want to stand in between you and your lunch. So we have a few grant deadlines and some information workshops coming up. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but on one of the very first slides that I had all of our departments listed, those are all hot links. You can go to not only the parts of our website for Community Business Launch and Main Street, but it'll also reiterate all of these due dates for you. Now, Go Virginia's the due dates vary a little bit, so that's actually a hot link to all of the deadlines for the different regions that are coming up in the next few weeks. So, and thank you, Kyle. Virginia Main Street, their national conference is going to be held here in Richmond. So please register today. And not only this is a great time to celebrate our Main Street, but it's a fantastic opportunity to highlight Virginia and Richmond. So definitely come and visit. And yes, if you Kyle just threw in the and Kyle Meyer is one of our program administrators for Virginia Main Street. But if you want a reduced rate, we can put you to work and become a volunteer so you can get a discount on the registration. But this is going to be a fantastic opportunity to get to know not other Main Street organizations throughout the country, but also to highlight what we are doing here. And I do want to let you know that we are working on having a happy hour that is highlighting entrepreneurial ecosystem building. So we can not only convene together, but also talk to folks from all over the country that are either interested in or doing ecosystem building work where they live, work, and play. So I got you, Kyle. We're trying to get people interested and to come visit us. You guys got to come and visit Richmond anyway, right? So this is a fantastic reason to come and say hello to Richmond and other main streets across the country. So it's right at noon. So if there's no other questions or comments that you have about entrepreneurial ecosystem building, we can go ahead and say our goodbyes. But I did want to let you know, this is our microfinance team. Jessica Hartness, myself, and Sabrina Blackett runs our Virginia Individual Development Account Program. So it's right at noon. So again, have a happy Thursday, and thank you so much for joining us today.